very much. And one of the things I want you to know is you can change the world if you choose to, okay? The problem is that you don't believe that you can do that. So I'm going to show you what you can achieve. Okay, here's how, we have a lot of presenters who have talked about the need to understand that enterprise must be making money before we start doing anything, all right? If the enterprise is not making money, guess what happens? What happens? You die. You're only in one of two situations. You're either growing or you're dying. And if you want to achieve change, guess what you must do? If you want to change, what must you do? If you want to grow, you must change. So change, cause change and lead, accept change and survive, resist change and die. Now you might do it in a very nice way so you don't feel like you're dying, but you're still dying. In 2008, something remarkable happened to the U.S. economy. You know what that was? What happened in 2008? The biggest recession we have ever seen. And General Motors died. And when asked, why did you die? General Motors said, we didn't see it coming. How many people believe they didn't see it coming? Nobody? Seriously? General Motors was at the time one of the largest companies in the world. The largest company in the world did not see change coming? How is that possible? Let me ask you this question. On the U.S. stock market, there's 100 companies, the top 100 companies. 100 years ago, there was also the top 100 companies. How many of those companies are still around from 100 years ago? How many? There's about 5. Can you name one of those companies? Coca-Cola wasn't in the top 100 years ago. Ford was a small business 100 years ago. GE is the only one that people recognize. Okay? Now what does that tell you? In the biggest economy in the world, companies die every day. In Jamaica, you name one large company that has died. What does that tell you? That tells you you have something that is causing change not to happen because of whoever's policy, government's policy, locking the country and keeping certain areas isolated. But the minute you open that isolation, guess what is going to happen? Competition from the rest of the world, and the competition from the rest of the world, if you cannot respond, you're gonna? Okay. So here's what happens. Every company in the U.S. is trying to become world class. Every company is trying to change. Every company have a change program. We usually refer to it as lean. 2007, 74% of all companies that are actively trying to change report little or no progress. 24% says, yes, we've seen some progress. Only 2% achieve what we call world class. You name one world class company that you're familiar with. One world class company you're familiar with. I said world class. Apple. That's that. Microsoft. Samsung. GE. The company that is recognized to be the most world class is Toyota. Why is that? It's because they compete in the most competitive environment in the world. Apple has an advantage. It's a great brand. GE has huge resources. it basically competes in spaces in which it totally dominates. Okay? Car companies are the most competitive industries in the world. Now, how did Toyota come from a bicycle manufacturer 60-something years ago to dominate the most competitive industry in the world? They use a concept called lean, which was first invented by Henry Ford, who did what? He created the first mass production system in the world that every production system has modeled since then. And you know where he got the idea from? He got the idea from a slaughterhouse in Green Bay, in which someone figured out how to improve the productivity of meat production by, instead of having one butcher it took 8 years for the person to become a butcher, they had to learn 34 cuts. I'll get about 6 or 8 people, and I only need to teach them 4 cuts. And I move the carcass across the production line, and guess what we got? Productivity improvement. That productivity improvement drove Chicago. Chicago, by the way, anyone here knows what the natural competitive advantage that Chicago has? What? The waterway. Chicago, you can go, once you get to Chicago, you can get to almost anywhere on this side of the U.S. Okay? And what they did, they basically took cattle to Chicago, cut it up, refrigerate it, and use it to feed the rest of the U.S. And from that, Chicago is the most diverse industry in the U.S. 30 of the largest companies in the U.S., in the world, are in Chicago. Okay? Now, anyone knows the automotive industry is so big? Anyone heard about the Detroit going bankrupt? What does that sound like? Sound like a similar story to Jamaica, right? You just don't call it bankrupt. You just call it nice words. What do we call it in the U.S.? Bankrupt. And when you're bankrupt, you're bankrupt. No one is going to lend you money. No one. Okay? In Jamaica, it's just odd times, right? And just make a call. Send money quick, right? All right. So here's the deal. If you want to become world class, it's really about having a strategic link at the very top of the organization, and someone said, how you get the job done. And here's what I don't do. I was born in Jamaica, so I've lived under the initiatives of the country, and I can tell you I'm a beneficiary of free university, not free, but very low cost. But here's the deal. When I was in the University of the West Indies, I used to listen to the lecture, and I used to start my conversation like this. All the government has to do. Now, since I've lived in the U.S., here's how I start the conversation. All I have to do, which is what I talk about, senior management must link at the top of the organization where they're going. And that linkage must be at the bottom of the organization and what you individually must be doing on a daily basis to do what? Improving. If you're not improving, can you improve a company? All right, so if you're not improving, the company can't improve. And if the company doesn't improve, guess what? We die. So here's the key. Here's a Jamaican experience of what world class looks like. All right, so this is really just a timeline. The first 25 years I lived in Jamaica. So therefore I went through same thing. Wasn't smart enough to go to Kingston College. Went to Kingston Tech. All right? So what did I learn? To use my hands. Okay? But I wanted to be even smarter. So I went to the University of the West Indies. All right? And I somehow got to Scotland. And in Scotland, the first thing my master's tutor taught me was, what is technology? What is technology, folks? Know-how. Where does know-how reside? In your brain. So there's no need for any new computer. There is no need for any new anything. If you take the current process you have with the resources that you have, you can change. Now here's our Chinese counterpart told you the importance of the country's policies favoring businesses. I got a break and I got into something called a teaching company scheme, which is a partnership with the university and industry. The money was given to a company which happened to be #1 in the UK. It made 10%, it made 30% of all automotive dials in the world. Okay? And what it was trying to do was to become world class. So they got money to get a graduate to work for them. And I also had a boss from the university. And you know what Israel was? To help me solve my problem. So here's how my week would go. My boss would come to me, the chairman, and he'd say, Albert, we got a problem, and I think you can fix this problem in 3 days. On Friday, the professor would come, or 3 days, 3 weeks. The professor would come and say, Albert, what you working on? And he said, that's a great problem. I think we can fix that in 3 months. What did immediately happen? No, it did not move to 3 months because the business did not care about 3 months. What do they care about? 3 weeks or 3 days. So it was great material because we had to figure it out, but you had to deliver. So that's where my training came in. Now, I so happened that company, Sunderland Nissan, put their first plant in the United Kingdom, and that's where I met the Japanese. And the Japanese brought us in, and they started training us on what they call, at the time we call it, Iki is actually referred to as quality circles. That's what the US consultants call it, quality circles. Get a bunch of people together, convince them that they can solve their own problem and show them techniques to do that. And that started my journey, folks. So, I have 3 degrees, and I tell people those are the least important qualification I have. I have been training constantly, folks, for 20 years. And how do I get smart? I stand on the shoulders of others. I see 1,000 people a year. And if I take one idea from you, every person I meet, guess how many ideas I have? Okay, that's how I get very smart. So, I've been to 21 countries, 400 companies all over the world, and there's only one requirement. Albert, how can we improve by minimum 50%? And the solution is, I can't change the people, I can't buy any more equipment, and I cannot change government policies. Okay? All right? So, we call this concept, you are referring to it as productivity. Productivity is only important as so much as it creates value. Who determines value, folks? The customer. If the customer is not willing to pay for it, the question was, how do we respond? We respond to our customer. We put systems to support them. Yes, I might need to know how many people came through the door. The customer doesn't care about how many people came through the door. That's your issue. So it's about working smarter. It's not about working harder. It's about the fact that whatever system you created, that's the problem. Individuals in the system cannot change the system. You have to change the big system. That's created by the management and how you choose to put the system together. The problem is not the individual productivity of an operator. The problem is the productivity of the system. Okay? It's about getting rid of waste. What is waste, folks? We play this game. I tell people waste is disguise. Right? Waste is disguised. You know what I see when I come here? I see, sorry about my frustration starts at the immigration line. I wait. 2 minutes is too long for me. Why? Why is 2 minutes too long for me? Time is money. Even in the U.S., 2 minutes is too long. All right? I know you wait longer. I understand that. But if you see what happens in the U.S. when people complain, what must the U.S. government do? They must find better solutions to the problem, okay? So the biggest challenge is, how is it of value to me? If I'm paying for a service, how is it of value to me? I am the person who decides to spend my money, okay? So you go to countries that are primarily tourist-oriented, they do all their immigration stuff on their side, on your side of the border, so that they allow you to just walk through. Start spending right now. How are you doing? Just spend. Just keep spending, because that's all they want from you, okay? Right? So basically, the important thing here is that anything that does not add value to the customer is, and if you do not get rid of it, folks, you die. So let me start from that basic premise. So this is a strategic part. Yeah, we have a lot of different ideas, but guess what? If I can't go from the top to a specific thing that I'm going to do on a daily basis that is going to change the performance of the entire system. So when I come into an organization and I ask you, what are you doing to change the performance of the organization? What must you tell me? Yes, what must you tell me? See? What are you doing right now? Yeah, you better be telling me who, what, where, when, and why right now. So this thing that I'm doing is adding value. Because if you're not doing something that is adding value, guess what? Okay. All right. So when we talk about the world-class enterprise, there's only 3 things, folks, that is important. Understand, the premise is that understand that value comes from giving the customer what they want. But you have to have a team that is doing what? Getting rid of waste. And they must be dedicated to improving quality, productivity every single day, every single minute of every day. So, this is the father of what we call the Toyota production system. He says the problem is not getting rid of waste. What is the problem, folks? So, if you accept waste in any form, I join a line to do. Why do I need to join a line? Why shouldn't I be able to go up and get what I want and go on my business? Why do I need to join a line? No, I'm still in order. You might need some order for yourself, but I don't need the order. Why do I need to join a line, folks? Why do I need to join a line? Why can't you give me the service that I want when I want it? No, you have the resources, folks. Trust me, you do. So here's the toolbox. Here's the toolbox. How many people know about these tools in the toolbox? How many people have heard about it? Show of hands. Not many. Well, here's the deal. They're just tools to do one thing and one thing only. To create flow. Anywhere you go and you don't see flow, it means that we are not productive. We are not adding value. Someone is not willing to pay for it. Okay? So, this is our version of what the presenters have talked about in terms of how do you see the big picture. It starts with in the bottom right-hand corner, it starts with, why are we in business? Why are you in business? To make money. And even if you're a non-for-profit, you're in business to add value. That is, you must create more than you consume. If you don't create more than you consume, what do you call that? You're dying. Okay? We can't keep that up. So, the planning part is about how we're going to make money or how we're going to add value. The top right-hand corner is about a very important concept that you must understand. The concept of waste elimination. That is each and everyone's job in a company, in a society, to eliminate waste. Okay? Those are the tools, and the bottom half is how you get it to work. Culture, by the way, which is the most important part. Because if you train people how to get rid of waste, guess what you got? A learned behavior that is the new culture. So here's one of the tools. I'm looking from an order to a delivery of any product. Okay? What do you see? A lot of messy things. What do you think that is? That's a process. Now, does that process, by the way, this is a US company, obviously. Does that process look efficient? Okay. So you didn't need to have a PhD to figure out that they're not getting it right? Okay. So you bring them through the brainstorming process, all throughout the organization. You identify the opportunities for improvement. That's what those yellow stars are. You create action plans to get it done. Okay? You improve it. And here's the actual result. This is a credit card manufacturer. They make gift cards. And here's what happened. Lead time, 32 days. They can now do it in 19 days. They made 237 million cards. They can now make 326 million cards. They add 143 million perso. They can now do 256 million perso. They add 2 less people. They use 40,000 square foot less. Now, what does that mean, folks? Folks, what happened? That's productivity. Does that mean that organization is going to survive? No. No. That does not mean, because all of that, they can do all of that in one day. They can actually go from a 32-day, 19-day lead time to a one-day lead time. They can make 2 million cards every day. That is, the order comes in, and at the end of the day, 2 million cards must come out. All right? So, these are their improvements. The point is, you can't see the end. They made 280 million more cards than before they were doing this. Folks, you understand the numbers I'm talking about here? What numbers am I talking about? Very large numbers. Okay? So, that's one of the challenges we're having. We're thinking in very small numbers. Okay? How many drinks do we drink in Jamaica every day? Okay? So we're talking about when an organization is thinking about improvement, we must be able to supply your total demand every single day. If it takes me more than a day, guess what is going to happen? If you use a product every day and it takes me more than a day to do it, guess what is going to happen? Well, you'll have a lot of business. If you lock the market down, you'll have a lot of back orders and they have to wait and no big deal, and you actually make a lot of money. All right? But competition will come in and do what? Okay. Now, how do you steal the market from the competition? If you can do even more than that, you can then turn around and export it. All right, so I'm just going to go through a couple of slides because I want to get us back on track. So here's the thing we got to do. We got to change our thinking. We got to start thinking about how to eliminate waste. We got to change our business philosophy. We have to grow. We're not trying to defend the position, folks. We have to grow. You got to change your actions, which if you change your actions on a daily basis, you'll change your habits and change the way you do things every day. So like everything else, you know, this pill, by the way, doesn't work. There's no lean pill. Okay? It's you changing the way you think. Now, in order to do that, you have to keep resistance at bay. Because here's the deal. If you think I'm going fast, guess what happens when you get there? You got to do it even faster. Okay? Change doesn't get less, it gets more. Okay? Leadership needs to be in front of the change. Leadership is there to tell you the why. Who is there to figure out how to do it? Who is there to figure out how to do it? You are. That's the idea here, folks. So, in closing, what I want to point out to you, that if this becomes your norm, if change becomes your norm, and you creating value becomes your norm, guess what? All of a sudden, you have a culture, a right culture. So, for example, when our Chinese guest was actually talking, we're not ashamed or laugh at what he's saying because those things are not acceptable in any language. All right? What they're bringing, if we can fix the supply chain, can help everyone. It can transform our economy. All right? It can folks, because that's where actual transfer of knowledge comes from. Know-how. If you learn how to do things from a know-how point of view with what you got, you can change the world. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.